Hello, Space Junkies, and welcome to What a Piece of Junk, episode number 132. Joining me to discuss the finale of Season 1 of Star Wars Ahsoka is my original podcast co pilot and drunken Gungan chief mechanic making his triumphant return to the cockpit. It's Derek Marsh. Derek, how's it going?
Good. Sorry I missed the last couple. We just weren't able to connect.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was a little under the weather, not feeling great a couple weeks ago for episode 6. And then episode 7 last week we were trying to, but then, just
Yeah.
couldn't line up. So, and I had to be gone for the past weekend for a cousin's wedding and was
Oh,
traveling out of
hey.
town. So wasn't able to do that, make it. But here I am finally, which is great because as crazy as it sounds, we've already hit the end of the road for this season of Ahsoka, assuming we get another
Yeah,
season.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 96% positive that we're gonna have a season 2 of Ahsoka. I don't
Did
think
they solve the
that
strikes yet, though?
they solved the writer's strike, so
Okay,
we're
we're
halfway
halfway
there.
there.
Um, so yeah, and someone who hopefully will inspire people to take us the rest of the way there is my original Wookiee co-pilot, our very own Dave Filcloni, Mr. Miracle himself, the gooey chewy man of 1,000 nicknames, Mr. Nathan Miracle. Nathan, welcome back.
Thank you, and it's good to be back with just you. Oh no, my assassins didn't get to Derek this week.
No. It's
Ah,
because he was at that wedding for his cousin. They went to his real house and he wasn't there, so
Did you
that's
keep
the
your
problem.
receipts? Because
I,
that's the same thing I tell Palp. If he didn't keep his receipt on Order 66, he
that
didn't.
explains why all these Boken Jedi are showing up. He didn't keep the receipts
yeah,
on Order
exactly.
66. Yeah,
Wiped out all the Jedi my wrinkly old face. Rah, this was a real ripoff.
And apparently they could just make new ones out of thin air. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So
I'm gonna will you into existence.
good to see you back, Derek. Glad to have you in the co-pilot seat, so that I don't have to do those duties because they're so onerous. Those duties of being
Yes,
next to Scott.
that's right. It is onerous to be next to me. Oh no, no, it's odorous. Odorous. My bad. My bad. Anyway, well, in just a few seconds here, dear listener, you may be forgiven for thinking that you accidentally downloaded a C.S. Lewis podcast, but it is not the Chronicles of Narnia. However, episode 8 of Star Wars Ahsoka was titled The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. See, you guys thought I was going to say wardrobe because that's the whole joke there. But yeah, an obvious nod to the Chronicles of Narnia with the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe. But it was not a Narnia story, although it kind of felt a little bit like one in certain respects. So, not to belabor or, beat the metaphor to death, guys, but did you get the impression that the whole going to the other galaxy where Peridia is might
through a
be
doorway.
essentially considered going into Narnia like you do when you go through the wardrobe in the Chronicles of Narnia?
In some ways, yes, but I think Narnia may also be represented by the world between worlds, or Mortis, so
Hmm.
where Balin Skull is trying to get to.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. I'll be eager to see what happens with him, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go ahead and dive into the 5 questions, and then we'll take a
Spoilers.
little break, and then we'll come back and give our final overall thoughts about season 1 of Ahsoka. So, question number 1: what was your favorite part of the episode, Derek?
The fight scenes. They
Mm,
were some really good lightsaber battles, especially between Morgan Elsbeth. For an old lady, man, she can sure blade,
mm-hmm.
with the best of them. And I don't even know if she's ever even had true training because I mean, the last time we saw her, she was actually using more of a bow staff when it was
Mm-hmm.
the Beskar staff from Mandalorian season 2. So obviously, she's been trained very well in the martial arts. Yeah, are the Wiccan ways of the
Mm-hmm.
mothers, I guess, apparently, or they just were able to give her souped up powers. Because apparently that's all they do now is they can give everybody superpowers in the show. So, but
Mm-hmm.
like I said, the battles were really good. I really thought the choreography was very well done for these sword fights. It would be great to get Lee on here and tell us what his thoughts of for this entire season, because there was quite a bit of lightsaber battles. Typically in the cartoons, it's one thing, but in the live action shows, we get usually two, maybe three if there's a flashback, which is what we got in Obi-Wan. But this one was almost every episode. I felt like we pretty much, or at least every 2 episodes, there was one, if not multiple, lightsaber fights that would probably again average out to almost one an episode, if not one plus, in some decimal amount. So, but I really enjoyed that and thought they were really well done.
Yeah, awesome. Dave Filcloni, what was your favorite part of the episode?
We've actually already hit upon my favorite part of the episode, and that is the title of the episode.
Ooh,
I am a
okay.
huge C.S. Lewis fan, in addition to being a Star Wars fan. I like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, but the Chronicles of Narnia were I say 7 of the first books that I ever read. I was introduced to them in the 3rd grade. I had a teacher who read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe every day, like 1 chapter a day for however long it took to finish it. Unfortunately, on Thursdays, I went to a different school. It was part of a magnet program thing, so I missed some of the chapters. But then she showed us.
Terrible.
It was terrible. Yeah, I'd come back on Friday and I'd be like, "So how did we get to here?
Why is the lion talking again?"
But she showed us the movie as well, and I didn't understand that she was showing us this movie because it was a movie version of the book. But she said the name of the movie. I'm like, man, that sounds a whole lot like this book you've been reading.
That wasn't the updated version, though, right?
Oh no!
Okay.
This was
it the BBC version, or
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Was it?
No, it was not a cartoon.
Okay.
It was live action, but it was not the Disney version.
Well, I don't think Disney's actually made a version of Chronicles of Narnia, but the live action version that most people are currently familiar with came out in 2005. So very much not
not that.
I was going to
say that.
I was like, dang, you been in 3rd grade a long time, Nathan.
I was. But then in 5th grade, we had a book fair, and I found the entire Chronicles of Narnia, and I didn't have any cash on me, but I told the lady there, I really want to get this. I'm going to come back tomorrow with $27.50 because that's how much it cost. And lo and behold, I came back the next day with $27.50 exactly and handed it to her. And she said, "You said you were going to come back today with money to buy this book, and you did." I'm like, "Well, I wasn't lying."
Well, I don't know. She might have had a lot of kids in her lifetime tell her, "I'll be back tomorrow with the money for this book." So
I'm sure that she has, but I was not kidding. I'm like, I love this Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe book. I want to get the whole series. And then later that same week, we had a day where we were allowed to just read the entire day. So I read Chronicles of Narnia that entire day.
Cool. My bad. The 2005 version of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I thought it was Walden Media, and it is Walden Media, but also produced by Walt Disney Pictures. So
that's what I thought. I was pretty sure. And that's what
it was a pretty decent budget for that movie back then.
Yeah, that's the one with Qui-Gon Jinn as Aslan.
Yes, exactly. The budget was estimated to be $180 million, so that's pretty
a lot
big
of CGI.
Yeah,
and of course they
too much
did.
CGI, really.
They did Prince Caspian and the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, but I believe that's where it stopped with that.
Yeah, they weren't good.
And oftentimes movie series of Chronicles of Narnia will stop after Voyage of the Dawn Treader, because after
those
that,
3 are kind of connected, and then the rest are kind of not.
Yeah, Prince Caspian has the same 4 children as The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And then Voyage of the Dawn Treader has Prince Caspian and 1 new kid and 2 of the original kids. And after that, you don't have any of the original children in the books.
And you
So
don't have very many of the other original characters from 1, 2, and 3 as you keep going on. You have some.
some of them show back up in the last book. Spoilers, I won't explain how that happens. And Prince Caspian does actually technically show up in the Silver Chair, which was the well, it depends on how you look at it.
Okay. In the original publication order, it was number 4, but chronologically, it was.
No, in the original publication order, it was 5. Chronologically, it's 6.
I thought that 4 was the Silver Chair. What was 4?
4 was Prince Caspian. No, excuse me. Chronologically, 4 is Prince Caspian.
Yes, but I meant like order of
Order written,
publication.
it's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, followed by Prince Caspian, followed by The Horse and His Boy, followed by Voyage of the Dawn Treader, then Silver Chair, The Magician's Nephew, The Last Battle.
Oh. That is definitely not the order that my books had the volume numbers.
Yeah, probably not. It probably had Magician's Nephew first, then Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Horse and His Boy, Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Silver Chair, Last Battle, because that's chronological. And most of them now show up chronological.
Nobody cared about the whole chronological thing. Well, anyway, doesn't really matter.
And
That's not
honestly,
what we're here to discuss.
it's better if you read it order of publication rather than chronological, in my personal opinion.
Because then you don't get the spoilers.
Right. Yeah, because
that's just like the Star Wars movies.
yeah, it kind
Empire
of
Strikes Back doesn't hit as hard when you already watched prequels 1, 2, and 3, and Clone Wars, Rebels, and everything else that's in between.
Well, I know we've mentioned it before on this podcast, but yes, Scott and I went to a 1 through 7 marathon of Star Wars, and after episode 5, Scott turned around and asked a guy behind us who had never seen Star Wars before this marathon. So
I was like, "Whoa, this is going to be so cool!"
What did you think when you found out that Darth Vader was Luke's father? He's like, I knew that. Scott asked, well, I guess you've just heard, because it's such
it's like part
of the public.
He was asleep at episode 2 and 3, apparently.
No, he wasn't. That's the thing. He's like, no, I didn't know that he was Luke's father, but I
just watched Luke be born. And then we're like, oh yeah. If you watch it in chronological, in episode order number, it ruins, like, quote unquote, the greatest twist in all of cinema.
And it makes the kiss even grosser.
It does, because when that happens.
Yeah.
All right, I have found the box set that I read as a child for the Chronicles of Narnia online, because Google Foo. The box set that I bought at a yard sale was published in 1970, and here is the numerical order in which they were shoved into the box and that I read them. Number 1, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Number 2, Prince Caspian. Number 3, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Number 4, The Silver Chair. Number 5, The Horse and His Boy, which confused the heck out of me, as for reasons you just mentioned. Number 6, The Magician's Nephew. And number 7, thankfully, The Last Battle. Because it would have been really weird if The Last Battle wasn't the last book.
Yeah, well, The Last Battle is always the last book. It was the last one written, last one chronologically. I think I understand where they came up with the order for yours, and it is because Prince Caspian is in Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and makes a brief appearance in the Silver Chair. So they kept that kind of loop together.
It's sort of like Star Trek 2, 3, and 4 in the motion pictures.
Yeah,
well, is that gonna piss you off, Scott, when they make the new Rey movie? Because then no longer she's the last Jedi.
But the whole point that Luke was making is, I will not be the last Jedi. So
no, Rey is the last Jedi. But now she won't be the last
only
Jedi.
Until there's another Jedi.
Yeah. He was trying to say that she's going to carry on the lineage. So no.
It's kind of like when you have a package of Oreos and you get down to the last Oreo. You still buy new Oreos.
But Scott
Not
said
sponsored.
that the last battle would have been really weird if that was the first thing. So I'm just saying.
That is true. That is true. I did say that. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
also partly because if you read that book in the Chronicles of Narnia, if something was going to happen afterwards, you'd be like, huh? Of course,
yeah.
some people
That's
felt
true.
that
I
way
mean, it
That
could
is
about.
it
true.
could be a doorway within a doorway. Next thing you know, we've got
Some
Inception
people,
going on here.
yeah, some people felt that way about making a Star Wars story happen after Return of the Jedi. They were kind of like, huh? How could you? Because, things were done. So, things were finished, I should say.
All right.
It's called
Well,
The Last Jedi, not The Final Jedi. Thank you very much.
so I could probably talk almost as long about Narnia as I could the Clone Wars.
We've done 10 minutes, so
So I think we're going to call it there and just say
Yeah.
my favorite
yeah.
part of the episode was the name of the episode. Not that I didn't like other parts, but that's the part where I pointed at the screen and said, "Oh my gosh,
It hits hard.
I know where that's from. I totally get it. I know exactly where Dave got that. This is awesome."
And I got it because
My,
all I've ever seen is just the first three crappy movies. So, well, the
yeah,
first one was okay, but the second two were the.
They,
yeah.
they're, I'm going to back away because I could talk about.
Step away from the
We
Narnia.
we know in most parts movies do not fill what the books are. So yes.
Absolutely.
There were
Absolutely.
certain key changes to the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in that version that I will not go into, but that changed some of the messaging that C.S. Lewis was trying to put out there. But
So is that what we could say about the extended universe, that they made some key changes and I don't have to agree with them then?
Yeah,
Sure.
totally. You don't have
There
to
you
agree
go.
with them. Absolutely. And they absolutely made key changes. There's no question.
But one key change that they brought back is Thrawn. So
That's true.
and he's
Yeah,
he's in the future too. He's after the Return of the Jedi. So there you go.
that's right. Yeah, at least that part's correct. So anyway, my favorite part of this episode was Ezra building a new lightsaber, and not only building a new lightsaber, doing it with Huyang, and doing it to emulate his master. So we get a nod to Kanan Jarrus. We were discussing on the previous episode of the podcast predictions for the finale, and we were talking about will we get a Kanan Jarrus appearance, which we didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Also no wolves.
yeah,
Nathan, so
very
that was
sad.
kinda-
Very sad about that too.
But we got an
yeah,
owl.
but we sort of we got the
Very happy about that.
how do you
The
how do you say it?
Mirror,
It's an owl.
Morai?
the Morai, yes.
Yes. Anyway, but we sort of got a Kanan appearance or nod with the lightsaber hilt that emulates his lightsaber. But I also liked the slightly meta in joke. I don't know if they did this on purpose, but I laughed out loud when Ezra said to Huyang, "I need a slightly different emitter because Kanan's was always too thin." And there's been people that back in 2015 complained that the blade on Kanan's lightsaber in the animated show Rebels was too thin and it looked like a wonky lightsaber. So I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know if that was the joke that they were really going for.
it was.
But if
I,
they
I
weren't,
think it was.
yeah, if they weren't, there was just way too
They-
close for it not to be.
Dave keeps it close to his heart. He'll do stuff when he admits where it's like, yeah, probably. So
Yeah. Yeah, you guys, it was a little thin there. The lightsaber blade, it was more like a light needle. Let's fix Ezra's lightsaber. I don't know why I have to grab my earlobe when I do Dave. He doesn't really do that. Anyway, but there you go. So yes, that was my favorite part. Kanan Jarrus homage with the lightsaber. And now also we have Ezra with a lightsaber again. I respect the whole I don't need a lightsaber. A true warrior is himself a weapon. I can use the force.
Which
But
was
it's
cool.
cool.
we needed
It's
Kung
cool
Fu
to-
Jedi.
Yeah, Kung Fu Jedi was cool, and we know that now Ezra can do that. But having a Kanan-esque lightsaber will be even cooler when he shows up in another show. Because actually, I think that's where we're going. But we'll talk about that in a second when we do our predictions for possible season 2 stories. So it's time for question number 2. Nathan, what was your least favorite part of the episode? And you can't say the closing credits because then you had too much, title credits.
Well, yeah, I mean, the closing credit. No, actually, weirdly, in stark contrast to Derek, the fights. But not because I think they were low quality fights. I'm just not the fight guy. I want to see more story. I understand action is important as well, but that's never going to be my favorite part of an episode. So them
I
mowing
would've-
down the night troopers,
I would have gladly traded one of the fights for more stuff with what the heck is Balin Skull trying to do?
Yes.
Well, they had to cut it. They said they cut stuff out.
And
Oh,
because he passed.
Yep, they cut it out because there was they're unsure what they're going to do with the character, and I think they're going though. We could talk about that because it's a later question. So, but yeah,
okay,
Yeah, but I think that's really more the point I'm getting to. It's not the fights themselves. It's just that the fights took up a relatively large portion of the runtime.
and the entire series.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's fine when the fights are telling story. So having the night troopers come back, that's a big story moment because oh my gosh, these witches can reanimate corpses, and if you haven't seen the Clone Wars, you don't know that they can do that. If you have seen the Clone Wars, no big shock, but
But it's still cool.
I knew it was coming, but yeah, it was still cool. But spending the length of time that we did hacking up stormtroopers or night troopers, I would rather some of that been devoted to other things.
That was the hardcore. That was the hardcore video gamers, though.
Yeah, it definitely
They were
was.
racking up XP.
absolutely. Yes, grind. Okay, I'm gonna jump the line here and go before Derek. My least favorite part of the episode was the part where it ended at Dathomir. So specifically, when Thrawn and the Night Sisters arrive on Dathomir and they're unloading all the boxes, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna open the boxes, and no, they're not. I'm just kidding. It's a whole hangar full of mystery boxes. Now, granted, we could assume that they're coffin-esque. And so, therefore, now that we know they can do zombie troopers, it's some kind of just add water, instant army. But I don't know that even 1,000,000 zombie troopers is going to be enough of a super weapon ultra plan thing for Thrawn to bring back the Empire. So I feel like it's not zombies. It's not a bunch of coffins. But maybe. Anyway, I was disappointed that we didn't get to know for sure. There were heavy hints that that's what we're doing here. But it might not be what we're doing. It might not be more zombies. So I don't know.
They're not troopers. They're Night Sisters.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. They're going to repopulate Dathomir.
I
So
think there's some validity to that. Yeah.
But is that a big enough of a super weapon plan for Thrawn to rebuild the Empire? I'm
Like
still wanting,
1,000 Night Sisters. So yeah, I would think so. Why do you think the
Palpatine
Empire?
had
Why did you think he got rid of them?
It may be that Thrawn's plan is to use his own wits and cunning, and he's just bringing the Night Sisters because that was the deal that he had with the mothers. Was
Yeah, that's true
get them
because
there to populate Dathomir. I just need to get back to the other galaxy.
That's true because Grand Admiral Thrawn probably is of the impression in somehow he has been communicating with the Prime Galaxy this whole time, whether it be through Morgan Elspeth or some other way. And maybe he just is like, I am aware that we have more resources than the New Republic has ever discovered. We can easily reconquer them with proper leadership. And so he's just gonna gather up, Moff Gideon and all them dudes.
All the remnants.
And
yeah.
and
Well,
then
Moff
just go
Gideon could bring back him.
Yeah. Yeah. I still think
Zombie
that the guy
Gideon.
No, I still think that the guy who died fighting Mando was a clone.
Well, yeah, we still got
Spoiler
that
alert
too.
if you
So.
haven't watched Mando season 3. Anyway,
If you
but
haven't,
This
What
must
are
have
you
been
doing
really
here?
confusing if you haven't watched anything. You
Yeah.
just started with
Yeah.
Ahsoka.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But
So anyway,
I-
be that as it may, I was disappointed that my least favorite part of the episode was what's in the box? What's in the box? Anyway,
I thought we were going to get a stinger. I agree.
yeah.
So I think Night Sisters also makes sense because we haven't seen any more of them in the other galaxy. Where are they? They can't just be 3 of them.
They're more rare than a Jedi.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point in time, I think so. Yeah.
All that said, I prefer Scott's idea from last week of TIE Defender parts.
Yeah. I was really disappointed we didn't have a big space battle. It was very Star Trek Voyager-esque right at the last second of the finale episode. Thrawn's ship makes it back to the place where he was trying to get this whole time, and credits. Come on! Who wrote this? Brandon Braga? Anyway. All right, Derek, what was your least favorite part of the episode?
Gents, I have a confession. This pulls at my heartstrings, and this kills me to say it. But Sabine was my least favorite part of this episode.
I mean, that's fair.
I was going to be so happy if they had just left her to be normal in a sense and not have to be some super force user, that she could have been somebody decent enough for that. And then the fact that they give her the thing, okay, just granted, she gets the lightsaber fine. But then she starts like mastering around the force and twirling around with the lightsaber like she's got a new, fling and the power to do it. And then she helps toss Ezra aboard.
Yeah, she's all whoosh.
And it's not even like it was some small feat. Like it was literally like trained, like even Ezra said, like, I can't do this. Right. So
yeah,
that is what hurts me the most about this, because that is just, again, they were doing such, and the problem is they were doing such a wonderful job with her too. So again, if they were going to do something light where she moves the pebble or, gets her lightsaber back because she's about to die, like, okay, like that could have been something. And then like whole season 2, she's
fine.
like struggling trying to get it right. It's like the whole Super Saiyan thing. Like they can't turn Super Saiyan until they see their best friend die in front of them or somebody's going to kill their child, right? Like those types of moments, right? Where she, has to then learn that. And now it could have been season 2, season 3, season 4. Like we could have seen like a legit, just like we got Ahsoka, right? Over the years of the Clone Wars and seen that, right? And we didn't. It just bada boom, bada bing. And now she's just as good as the rest of them. And that just, it hurts me to say it. And yeah, so
I can kind of see what you're saying though, because I mean, it was quite a leap to go from, oh my gosh, I made the lightsaber move, like Luke in the Wampa Cave in Empire Strikes Back. But then immediately, like 4 minutes later, it's no problem, Ezra. I can pick you up and bodily hurl you into the enemy Star Destroyer. It was quite a leap to go from picking up a lightsaber to helping Ezra make this huge leap.
Yeah, like Luke couldn't even do that. You know what I'm saying? Like Luke was doing pebbles and then couldn't do a starship after weeks with Yoda. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually exactly the example I was going to bring up. Luke moving the lightsaber in the Wampa Cave when his life is at risk. Sabine moving the lightsaber really reminded me of that. Luke does later in the same movie make a great force jump out of the carbon freezing chamber after having training with Yoda. Not 2 minutes later after running up a flight of stairs. and that's it.
And we had plenty of time for, like Derek said, in season 2, we can watch her continue to struggle through, how do I learn how to use the Force? But meh.
Yeah. So to me, that's just
some commentary about attention spans of modern Star Wars fans.
It's just the Mary Sue effect again. I know I hate that. I mean, but to me that
maybe.
It just forced upon us. No pun intended.
But here's the thing, though. If all of the young women characters get to do it, it's no longer even a Mary Sue, because that's supposed to be, there's this one special character for whom everything is easy, which is apparently the new modern version of the definition of Mary Sue. Insert old man rant. That's not what it means here. But like, if it works for Rey and it worked for Sabine, is it even still Mary Sue? It's just girls are good with the Force. I don't know. What's the deal?
Which again, there was equality in Star Wars to begin with. There was women on the seat of the Master Council, right? There was plenty of Master women Jedi. Like why do you have to make it something like, again? I'm not saying Dave Filoni was writing it as an agenda, right? He's not. I believe he's not trying to do what they were doing, but again. You made strong characters in Rebels, and this is the next inclination. But again, it's okay that not everybody is a Jedi. Again, Andor proves it. The best Star Wars we've gotten, and not saying not everybody agrees, because I know you guys won't agree with me, but to me, the best Star Wars is Andor, because it is a good story that takes place in the Star Wars universe. Simple as that.
It is a good story. It's excellently done.
It is.
But here's the thing, though. I don't think that Sabine suddenly gaining, oh, well, now I know how to do all the cool stuff, was written as part of an agenda, because if there was an agenda, I don't think they would have had the earlier part.
Correct. I'm not saying it is, but that's what it makes it feel like.
You suck. You're the worst Padawan I've ever seen,
And that's what's going to make people hate Sabine, though. That's the problem, right? Like Sabine could have just been a really cool character, been like, oh, you know what? She's not the greatest, right? She fell on her face plenty of times. She couldn't do it, right? But you know what? She got up, and that was the thing I loved about Sabine. She, and the whole point of what we talked about, why I know I talked with Culture Clash with Steve and Kyle about this. That's what made Sabine special, is she didn't follow the Jedi code that Ahsoka was trying to get her to do and destroy. All she cared about was saving her friends. That's the same thing that we talked about. That's what made Luke. He didn't care about the things. He wanted to save his friends. And again, whether you believe that or not from The Last Jedi, that's the impression I've got. That's why I didn't like The Last Jedi, because no matter what, Luke would have done whatever it is to save his friends and his family. And to me, that's what makes a hero.
Yeah. And he was still trying to save his friends and family. He just did it in a way that most
like I said, we can expect. Go. Don't fall down that rabbit hole.
But the point was, he still was a maverick. He had the sacred Jedi texts, but as Yoda taught him in The Last Jedi, as Yoda taught us in The Last Jedi, it wasn't like Luke was actually studying those books. He read them once, maybe all the way through, and then Yoda embraced that. Yeah, maybe not all the way through.
No, Yoda asks him, "Have you read them?" And he's like, So the answer is no. He did not read
Anyway,
Small
but then
Picture.
Yoda embraces that idea much the same way that Anakin eventually did when he blows up the books, or seemingly blows up the books, because he was kind of like, you don't need this to save your friends and family. And I'm like you, Derek. I agree. I wanted Sabine to be like, you know what? Maybe this Force thing isn't for me. We had plenty of lightsaber action going on in the Ahsoka series with Ezra and, of course, Ahsoka herself. And for crying out loud, Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader have been lightsabering it up in this show. I mean, you don't get any more lightsaber-y than the guy who introduced us to the laser sword first, right? But yeah. Maybe in season 2, Sabine will end up deciding, I don't really have to keep going down this path. I found that I could do it if I wanted to, but I'm going to embrace my Mandalorian heritage. Although I think that perhaps the seeds of, no, she's going to be a really great Mandalorian Jedi have already been planted with dialogue from Hu Yang in this season, where he was all like, there haven't been that many great Mandalorian Jedi. And he's right.
And that would have been fine. There doesn't need to be. That's the problem. To me, the great Mandalorian Jedi was Grogu. That's what we got. Like, they could have taken this, what Dave's doing with Sabine, pushed that to the side, and give that to Grogu then. And again, Grogu could have done that on his own without Mando, because that's what I've talked about too. Like, we didn't need Grogu to come back. Could have had his own show with, Mark Hamill, and that would have been wonderful, right? But anyways.
Yeah, so to put it into Star Wars CCG terms,
she's now a 5.
Often do. She's now a 5. She was a 3. When she pulls the lightsaber to her, she's a 4, and that's a reasonable step. But when she throws Ezra over, that's level 5. That's ability 5. So she went from 3 to 5
in 4 minutes.
And if you're doing the Jedi tests, you got to do them in order. You got to do 3, then 4, then 5, and she just kind of skipped one.
Well, the person playing that deck just had stacked really good destinies and was able to do 2 tests in the same turn.
That's it.
I'm not even sure if you can do 4 and 5 in the same turn. I need to go back and look at that. Anyway, but yeah, there is that.
So, anyways, that hurts me, guys. But I had to at least say that. So
I think pulling the lightsaber is fine, giving her a little bit of force ability, because the whole season has been leading up to that. I do think pushing Ezra onto the other ship was a gap too far.
And really, I was hoping that she would have thought she got it, but then we would have found out that was Ezra who got his butt kicked, but he was still sitting over there on the ground, did it for her. That to me would have been great. Like, it was just Ezra helping her. Like, she thought she did it and she saved it, great. But you know what? It was Ezra. And that would have been wonderful.
Yeah.
I actually thought that she was going to go for it to push him and fail. And he's all, I'm falling to my death. And she was going to have to use her whipcord to grab him out of midair and pull him back up to the platform. And I'd be like, oh, that's cool. She failed, but then she used a Mandalorian gadget to keep it from failing all the way. This, I thought was good, like you, Derek. I thought that was going to be her character arc. But no, they just did the cool superhero type stuff, which I don't mind superhero force powers. It just... I guess
she didn't need it. That's the thing. She didn't need it.
Yeah.
Again, they honestly didn't need to have that problem be a problem. They could have just had it be, okay, they made it in time. Sabine still has to make the choice. Yeah, because I've got to get on now or never. Do I get on the ship or do I go back
Correct.
for my master? We don't
Correct.
need the force jump step to have that conflict.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
All right,
I mean,
question number 3. What connections did you draw to the rest of the larger Star Wars galaxy? Well, for me, it's Home One. I thought it was cool that when Ezra came back, stealing Balin Skull's ship, by the way, that when he came back to meet up with the Republic, he docked in Home One again. So Nathan, you get half of a point for your finale predictions because you were predicting that Home One would get destroyed. Well, it didn't, but at least it did show up in this episode. So,
But it could still be destroyed because Thrawn hasn't encountered any Republic.
but that was the
forces
season
yet.
finale, so that had to be next
That's
season.
true.
finale.
That's true.
Yep.
I may just be wrong on the timing, but I still think Home One is going to get blown up by Thrawn to establish Thrawn as a credible threat to the Republic.
Well,
Could
you
be,
would think
could
it would
be.
have to because it doesn't show up in the sequel trilogy. So
That
Right.
too, yeah. It could just not be around. They could have just decommissioned it, but that's boring. Why not blow it up?
Anyway, when you're an admiral, I hear you get to pick your own flagship. So Akbar might have been all like, "No, we're keeping this going," and then Thrawn blows it up. But yeah, you're just tapping into the Filoni network from the future.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, that's my big connection. Was Home One showed up again, and of course, Chopper and Hera were there, which is also a pretty big connection. Derek, what do you got for connections?
we have owls and force ghosts and all the stuff where we're meant to be on this planet with our tiny little podling friends. So, no, it was just great because now we know for sure the owl is not just a figment of the force in a sense. It is literally tied to the world between worlds. We know that for 100% now. It's not just something else that we've been kind of, what does this mean? No, she's literally the next Gandalf that we've already deemed. And, everything that's been leading up to this character arc is confirmed with that. So, yeah, I was a little also the Force Ghost is cool. Great to see that. Especially since we got, obviously quite a bit with Hayden Christensen this past season. But we'll go into that after break. But that's another thing too, whether Sabine sees Anakin or not too. That's a little bleh on my end too. So, but it was great to have the Force Ghost. So
I think she kind of sensed him, but didn't see him, whereas I believe Ahsoka actually saw him.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that because that seems more like an ability 4 thing.
Right. Yes.
Ability 5, you can see them because Luke could see them while he was on Dagobah.
Nathan, we were talking earlier. The presence.
no,
of
he did
Morai,
see him. No, he did see Ben on Hoth. Remember?
That is true.
So
And he was
just
ability
barely,
4.
yeah. So,
Yes, he was fated.
barely, yeah, yeah. So we were talking about the Morai and how that's cool to have it as a physical manifestation thing there now. But Nathan, there may have been wolves in the stuff they had to cut with Balin Skull.
That seems likely.
Because it feels really weird for Dave to put the Morai but no wolves. That just doesn't seem right. But what do I know?
Well, I was also expecting us to get into the world between worlds in this episode, and clearly we didn't. And that's kind of where I was expecting to see wolves show up. So I'm still going to put that in the I'm predicting the future still category.
Or deleted
So what,
scenes. They didn't tell you about
deleted
deleted
scenes,
scenes.
That's true.
Yeah, yeah. So, Nathan, what were your connections to the larger Star Wars galaxy? I need to stop saying Star Wars galaxy because this show is like
Galaxies.
Well, I am going to relate it back to something in the original galaxy. Now, Mace Windu in Revenge of the Sith gets his hand chopped off, gets blown out a window, and you might think that that's the worst thing that's ever happened to Mace Windu, but it's not. There is an arc of the Clone Wars where he has to work with none other than Jar Jar Binks.
Oh God!
And Jar Jar Binks is actually semi-competent in that arc of episodes. But I bring up that arc of episodes because Mace Windu has to face off against Mother Talzin. And Mother Talzin is wielding a particular blade, a blade that we see in this episode, which is name dropped as the Blade of Talzin. So
Yeah, that's
named
cool.
after her as well. This sword is made out of some sort of metal that is clearly resistant to lightsabers. We don't know what kind, but Beskar seems incredibly likely now that we know what Beskar does. And it is wreathed in green flames. It worked exactly the same way in the Clone Wars. So presumably this is the same blade. It is, after all, the blade of Talzin, the blade of that particular character. How they got it to the other galaxy, I'm going to go magic.
I mean, it's almost obvious
Morgan
because
could have brought it.
That's true, but it looks like the mother here in this episode of Ahsoka, like, literally summons it into existence.
I'm thinking it's something similar to what we saw in episode 9 when Rey put the lightsaber behind her head and then Ben pulled the lightsaber out and they transported that lightsaber. I think it's a more controlled variety of that where they've summoned it from another place.
I think she ripped off Harry Potter. It's the sword on Gryffindor.
Ah.
And it'll only appear to those that, in the time of evilness, need it. Instead of those of Gryffindor when they need it for good.
I'm gonna pull it out of my hat.
The sword-ing hat, yes.
The swording hat. Oh God. But yeah, cool reference to the Clone Wars and excellent reference to Mother Talzin. So that was cool. Okay, question 4. Take it away, whoever wrote this question.
That would be me. So, do you guys think the zombie troopers were already dead, or were they just, regular stormtroopers and then finally made zombie troopers during that point when they rezzed them?
I think that they were alive stormtroopers in the beat up, repaired armor, much like the ones we saw fight Ezra and Ahsoka down on the ground, and they got killed in very traditional and totally normal ways. But these guys volunteered to be reanimated because I think that's what Thrawn was talking about when he told Enoch. Enoch was all like, "My Lord Grand Admiral, all the volunteers are ready." And Thrawn was like, "Do they understand what they're volunteering to do?" And at first I thought he meant be left behind as a roadblock for the heroes. But then later I was like, oh, I bet they had, he as a man of honor, Thrawn was probably all like, some of you may die, but then you will be undead. And so they had to agree to that. And perhaps for the magic to work, you have to consent.
I think that's very likely. I think you do have to consent to it. And we've seen this magic before, and it was with Night Sisters, but presumably they also consented
They
to
all
this.
agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they were alive when our heroes first killed them, and then Ahsoka and them turn around and start to go up the stairs when, and Ezra's like, no, this is new. So that also makes me think that the whole idea of zombie troopers isn't super common on Peridia, because if even Ezra hasn't dealt with them yet, I think this was like a first time thing. Because probably Thrawn was all, you guys, you Night Sisters can do a lot of cool stuff for me, but this whole bringing people back from the dead, nah, I'm not cool with that. Not for the Emperor's loyal stormtroopers. Maybe for the mercenaries or all those kind of guys that show up on Peridia, but not Imperial stormtroopers.
So when you asked this question, I didn't think you meant the stormtroopers or the night troopers in the white outfits, because I thought it was pretty clear that they were not dead until the Jedi showed up and killed them, and then they were reanimated after that. I thought you were talking about the two Death Troopers that Sabine and Ezra fight up at
them too.
top. And I think it's possible that they may have been dead longer and reanimated, because we get to see underneath the mask a little bit, and they started to look decayed. But I'll be honest, my first thought was not, oh, these are dead troopers. My first thought was of Star Wars: The Old Republic, and the Sith get a companion fairly early on. Kim Val, I believe is his name, and he is a Dashade. Am I pronouncing that right, Scott? You're the Droid guy. Dashad.
Dashad, yeah.
And I thought they looked like Dashad.
That's only they're not big enough. Even those night troopers, when they fought, are
They were tall. They were taller.
The Dashad are very well.
Huge.
The Dashad that we get as a companion's huge. Maybe these are just slightly smaller. Maybe he's the Big Show or Shaq of the Dashad.
Or the Clancy Brown, at least. You could just say, keep
the Clancy Brown.
He's the Clancy Brown. The others are
so I thought
human.
More camel.
I thought these two things that Ezra and Sabine fought in the black armor were supposed to be slightly repaired Death Troopers from Rogue One, weren't they?
Well, the armor was definitely Death Trooper armor.
Well, there were Death Troopers that escorted Thrawn in Rebels, so those are the ones that went with him when he went there, right? So they're the same Death Troopers that were with, people.
The question is, are they reanimated Death Troopers or...
We didn't see them die on screen.
Right.
So to me, they were already zombies.
So, no, but aren't Death Troopers, they were... The Emperor did this with them. They were dead, and then they got sort of reanimated by cybernetics. Isn't that how Death Troopers work?
Those are Dark Troopers.
No, Dark Troopers were cyborgs that weren't dead.
That was right? Gen 3. Remember,
Gen
that was
3,
that's what Moff Gideon was what Moff Gideon gave us.
Those are straight up droids. They're not any part of them flesh. Gen 2 Dark Troopers were half man, half machine. But not dead man machine.
Correct. But I'm saying.
So
but,
what
but
I thought was...
But Death Troopers were just highly... That's what those black ones are, called Death Troopers.
Yeah, but aren't Death Troopers people that were dead and then had body parts replaced with cybernetics?
No, those were the elite. They were like the elite, like your Navy SEALs type deal for personal bodyguards, because Krennic had them. Thrawn had them. The Emperor had them.
I thought that what he had,
but they weren't zombies though.
Like
because they were talking. You see them talking.
Well, they were talking
in Rogue One. Well, but in Rogue One they were communicating.
Well, there's also an episode of Rebels where they speak basic. So but I thought that was just because they had different cybernetics put into them. Anywho, my point is, I do think they were dead, and I thought they were brought back to life by science, not magic. So they're zombies, but they were zombies the whole time before Thrawn arrived on Peridia. That was my idea, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not how Death Troopers work.
Well, I don't see... I've done some quick Google fooing, and I don't see anything to indicate that Death Troopers were necessarily dead. That said, I'm not sure we've ever seen a Death Trooper take their helmet off.
We've only seen them a handful of times, so...
That's true, too. So
well, anyway, my
not out of the realm of possibility.
Because I would assume anytime we've seen a Death Trooper in any of the card games, they would have been identified as some type of undead or something.
Maybe.
Well, sometimes card games...
They don't know.
No. or things change and get retconned, because right now we don't know that any of them are dead people reanimated through cybernetics. But later it could turn out that, actually all of them were, because we haven't seen anything to prove otherwise.
Yeah, here's the main reason that I don't think so. Dead or not, they definitely have cybernetic parts. We've seen that. Here's the reason I think that they weren't Dark Death, Night Sister magic. When our heroes killed these guys in this episode of the show, none of the green stuff happened. Like no green energy stuff. At least not that I remember.
I didn't see it after they killed them. I saw the green energy when they were all lying on the ground, so you knew that green energy was coming. But I don't remember seeing any green energy when they died, like Wolfman, whatever he did in episode 4. Merrick, like when Ahsoka cut him, like he was, but I don't think he was like any man at all. I think he was just literally a spirit. He was just a spirit.
All hat, no cap.
Yeah, he was bent out to broomsticks. So
right, yes.
I mean, it could be that he used to have a body, and it was a soul, completely decomposed by this point.
So yeah, but also when our heroes were fighting these death troopers, I don't remember them having any green glowy happening while they were moving around either. Which the night troopers seemed to kind of have a little bit of a sheen, or even their eyes,
Their eyes were for
glowy
sure.
green. Yeah. So no, I don't think that they were Night Sister style zombies,
Okay.
but I still think they were zombies because,
So
like we said, when
Scott's
they
a
when
no
you
for both. Okay.
when
And
they
Nathan,
cut
you're
open their
split.
mask.
I'm saying they definitely, the night troopers and the white armor definitely were not zombies until this episode. I still think that the death troopers are some sort of alien and were not dead at all.
Okay.
Either way, it was an epic fight to have them like chopping up the bad guys. In Star
It was
Wars. And
nice you got to see that, right?
oh man, the decapitation was just, oh, that's cool. But they did it in such a way as to not blow up their ratings for overseas.
Yeah.
Because you didn't actually see the moment of
You
cut.
just see the head.
It's just the head rolling off, a la
But it was a
Jango
zombie
Fett.
too. It wasn't a real person. It was a
Yeah.
zombie.
Yep, exactly. So we can get around the censors that way in foreign countries. Sort of
Yeah,
like
but
with
Ezra
all
doesn't
the-
want that helmet.
No, he doesn't. He does not. Ew.
If it was a Wookiee, he
Ew.
would have though.
Yeah.
Or
All
Turtle
right.
Ocean. one or
That's
the
not
other.
how. No,
So,
no.
Derek, what's your answer to your own question? Do you think that they were dead the whole time?
I was split. I thought the stormtroopers were humans because yes, that was the whole point of Thrawn's dialogue with the sisters and Morgan Elsbeth, right? Like you were saying, whether they had to commit to it or not, but I think Thrawn wouldn't have done it if they didn't, right? Like they could have
Yeah.
just done it regardless, but Thrawn would have been like, "What
Yeah.
the heck you're doing?" Right? So they had to quote unquote give themselves up. They had to be organ donors in order to do this for magic / mad science. But
Yeah.
to me, the Death Troopers were already dead. So to me, this was they had died at some point, and the sisters brought them back for Thrawn, and then they were just kept in a dungeon somewhere until they were needed to be released. But they were actually probably more or less effective in some degree. I mean, I know the one had Sabine in a chokehold at the end, and had she not, become a ability 3 to ability 5 in 10 seconds, she wouldn't have made it. But otherwise, that was more of they were more true like zombies the whole time. And because, like I said, we didn't get to see them die on screen a first time, so. Not to say that they didn't, and that's a deleted scene somewhere else too, maybe. Anyways, question 5, Nathan.
All right, so kind of a complicated question here, and this one delves into the real world as well. Obviously, Balin Skull's story is not complete. We see him standing on the statue of the father, next to the statue of the son. The daughter seems like
Broken.
hers is broken. Yeah. It seems to have been there, but is no longer there, which I think might be very meaningful. But the problem here is the actor who played Balin Skull, Ray Stevenson, has passed away. So my question is, what should Star Wars do with this storyline? There's some possibilities. He could be recast. They could drop the storyline altogether. They could find a way to write the character out of the storyline so that maybe we just see him from the back for a little bit with a stand-in, and then, oh yes, he dies off screen. Yeah. But there's possibilities is what I'm saying. And I'd like to hear what you guys think Star Wars might do and what you think they should do.
Which one
Derek,
of us
you
do
wanna
you
go
want to
first,
answer
or-
for- Okay.
I was gonna say,
I was
Be the
going with
gentleman.
whoever jumped in, but yeah, we'll go with Derek.
Okay. So, but as we talked about, right, there were more scenes, and then they had to cut them, right, just because with what happened, they're actually unsure with what they want to do, right? So Disney doesn't know at this point. Obviously, there was going to be a continued story because, like we mentioned, at the end, you still have Ahsoka and Sabine stuck here. So there was, and obviously Shin's on the planet as well, too, right? So there was going to be something all of season 2 that was going to reconnect them at some point, right? And that probably would have been what Balin was going to discover But again, since they were unsure what they were going to do at this point, they removed that. So really what I think happens, or what I hope happens, is that they just unfortunately recast Balin. As much as that sucks, because obviously Ray Stevenson was a highlight of this character Balin for this entire show. And really is upsetting because I really wanted to see his backstory too. I really think we would have gotten an opportunity to see that in season 2, with some of his backstory, whether it was him, de-aged, or, somebody else as a young person, that would have been casted to look like Ray Stevenson to portray him when he was a younger Jedi, at the temple, or his training as a youngling Padawan, whatever. We got it right. And so that they can obviously still do. And I think that they should. I mean, they can obviously, to be fair, it's not like Ray Stevenson doesn't have a whole lot of stuff out there, which there is. He's done a lot of acting that they could do deep fake. They could get somebody to do it where they could actually close it enough and pass the torch to Shin, and do a lot of far away shots and back head shots and stuff of somebody standing in, while they do that. Voice, obviously, the way they do, again, he's got plenty of stuff out there. AI is crazy in what they can do. So if they wanted to pay honor to Ray Stevenson that way, go for it, right? Spend the money. Again, this was a character that fans really gravitated towards. They really liked it. So there's enough in there that if they invest the CGI and the technology into it, I know it costs a bit more, but again, it would be a great homage to be able to keep that character going, even if Ray Stevenson wasn't able to portray it. Like I said, regardless, I think they will recast it. It's just the form of what way they do it. And from there, obviously, with the Mortis, we'll find I don't want to say a Jedi temple, but obviously I think we'll find another piece that connects to the world between worlds. And I think that's what Ahsoka was seeing. And obviously what Sabine was sensing. I don't think either of them actually saw Anakin. I think Sabine got obviously could have sensed it, but she was seeing something with the world between worlds where she was looking off in the clouds. That was the direction Balin was at. So that's what I was thinking. And like I said, hopefully they'll continue that storyline. And worst case, they need to do something to connect the pieces, because they could easily hand off the torch, to your point, Nathan, and just give it to Shin. And she can, portray that and finish it up, and they can just have somebody, like I said, however they want to cheaply do it. But I think they should just keep the character around at least through the entire season 2, if they don't want to spend the money after that and write the character off that way. Which again, I thought at some point Balin would die by the hands of Shin anyways, from what's going to happen. Whether she turns good or she goes full on baddie, either way, that's how the story gets for her to move on, is she has to kill Balin.
Interesting. So for me, I think that we're just going to recast. I've seen a lot of fan casting online to have Liev Schreiber take over as Balin Skull, although just because you end up with a similar look and you're a well-known character actor doesn't always work in Star Wars, because we all saw this talk about Sebastian Stan taking over for Mark Hamill because they look so much alike, and they do, but that's never come to fruition. I don't know that it will be Liv Schreiber. It might be someone we've not really heard of before. But I think they're just going to recast more so than do any sort of AI deepfake kind of thing. Because I think that, and Derek kind of brought this up earlier tonight about, do we have enough of the actors and writers strikes taken care of to where we can actually have a season 2 of Ahsoka? And the answer is the actors are still on strike as far as I know. And so I think that whatever contract they end up getting with the big movie houses and producers guilds is gonna stipulate hard about what you are allowed to do with AI going forward, and I don't think it will allow for that kind of bring him back from the dead kind of stuff, which has pluses and minuses. But I think they'll recast just to keep the story going. However, the idea that Shin might take over and quote unquote kill Balin, and that's how we write him out of the show, was kind of telegraphed a little bit even in episode 8 of season 1, because she disobeyed her master once again. He told her to go join Grand Admiral Thrawn and take her place in the new empire. And she didn't do that, guys. She did her own thing. Now, what that thing is, I don't know, but she went over to where all of the Red Raider dudes were and held up her lightsaber in a very I am now your warlord thing. Perhaps the titular warlord from the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. Now, we all think that was Thrawn, but maybe not. Warlord isn't a term often ascribed to Thrawn. It has been sometimes. But her taking over those raiders with her sword held high, mounted, this warlordish thing, most warlordish thing I saw in this episode. And again, to Derek's point, she's disobeying her master. But I don't know if betraying is the right word, but certainly not doing what she was told to do by him. So, yeah. Where we go with Baylan Skoll's character is going to be perhaps the biggest Star Wars mystery for hardcore fans in the next 2 or 3 years. Nathan,
I'm sure we'll at least get a comic of his past, though.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Oh, yeah.
Nathan, what are your thoughts about your question here? What's the deal?
Well, I too have seen a lot of fan casting, and
Liev Schreiber.
Ray Donovan is also my first pick for I think they should recast. Star Wars has been very reluctant to recast ever since the Solo movie. I feel like they blame the fact that they had to recast Han and Lando and Chewbacca, quite frankly, because
but they did such a good job.
They did.
Yeah, I don't know
but
why.
that movie didn't do well at the box office. Now
That's because it's the Last Jedi's fault.
We can sit here and give all the reasons why it's not Solo's fault, which I think are all accurate. But Disney sees that, hey, when we did this recasting, the movie didn't do as well, so we're going to not do recastings anymore. And that's my fear, is that they're going to say, you know what, we need to apply that to everything. And I can understand why you might want to apply it to the original characters and not try to recast Luke and Leia and Han any more than they have. Although, man, Lando was so good in that movie.
Well, and they are making the Lando Calrissian with Donald Glover, so they're not hesitant on that character.
Yeah, right. which is a bit of an outlier, though, because they've refused to recast anybody else.
The exception that proves the rule.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that because Baylan is a newer character and we've only had a few episodes with him, that they'll say, okay, you know what, it's okay to recast him. I hope they don't try to ham-fist in some explanation for why he looks slightly different or talks slightly different. I could see, oh, the father, he gets into Mortis, and the father's all, I'm going to do something to you, and now you look slightly different. No, I'd rather them do something.
The attempt on my life has left me scarred and...
Or he could be in a court and Terrence Howard and Don Cheadle gives the wink.
Well, but that's what I would prefer is for him to say, look, I'm here. It's me. Deal with it. Let's move on. I like the way
I can see that easily happening. Lord Grand Admiral Thrawn turns around one day as he walks onto the bridge of the Chimera. Lord Baylan, yes, I'm here. It's me. Now deal with it.
Or give him a big scar. Then that way we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. But I think that was...
I got it. He's Vader-esque, and he has to start wearing the thing for the life support.
Oh, mask of Revan.
Mask, yeah, Revan's mask, mask of Ki-Adi-Mundi, whatever.
Or maybe that's where Kylo gets his. Maybe Baylan starts it.
He's the first Knight of Ren. I'm in.
No, my whole point though is I think it's better to just acknowledge, yes, this is a different actor. It's the same character. Life happens. Let's move on.
Yeah.
We're all adults. We can do it. As long as they just continue to write good stories and good casting. Because like I said, yeah. I mean, the lookalikes, and I think the voice has some similarities, and stuff like that. It's not like he's got a squeaky high voice or anything. So,
and to be quite honest, I am terrible with actors' names and whatnot. When I heard that Ray was playing Baylan Skoll, I actually did get him confused with Schreiber because one of the main characters he plays is Ray Donovan.
Here's something funny. Mita got Ray Stevenson confused with Ray Winstone, and she was like, "Really? They're having that guy be a dark Jedi type dude?" I mean, he was okay in Beowulf, but that was a lot of computer animation. And I was like, "Babe, that's not the same dude." Because she's right. If you tried to have Ray Winstone be a dark Jedi, I mean, all power to Dave Filoni, but bro. Anyway, but Leaf Schreiber,
I mean,
he'd
at
kill it.
least she got him mixed up with a real person. I got him mixed up with
The
a
character.
character that somebody else. But Schreiber looks enough like Ray Stevenson that I'm like, okay, yeah, no, this looks like him. But I didn't think his last name was Stevens. Oh wait, totally different guy. But clearly,
This is not what I thought. Nathan was going to get confused with Ray Stevenson. I thought he was going to start talking about the Squirrel Revival with Ray.
Yeah,
Stevens.
no, that's Ray Stevens,
Yeah.
which is the reason
we're
why
really
every
close.
time I say Ray Stevenson, I have to double check myself that I don't accidentally say Ray Stevens, because he would not work well as anything in Star Wars, quite frankly.
No. Anyway, well, if you want to hear more geeky type folks talk about various actors in various roles or fan castings or dream castings, you should check out some of the other shows here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And here to tell us about those shows as we take a quick break is Kevin.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our Fandom Flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville Show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. So in just a second, we're going to talk about our own theories and or reactions to Season 1 of Star Wars Ahsoka as a whole, instead of limiting ourselves to one particular episode. But guys, I found out why I thought Death Troopers were corpses reanimated from cybernetic stuff. It comes from the book called Star Wars, Absolutely Everything You Need to Know, Expanded and Updated. Updated and Expanded. And the reason I thought that is somewhere in that book, in the Death Troopers section, as is referenced on Wikipedia, is this basic summation. Death Troopers were named by Emperor Palpatine himself to capitalize on rumors about a legendary Imperial Military Department of Advanced Weapons Research project to revive necrotic tissue, which ultimately resulted in the creation of uncontrollable undead troopers sometime between Year 1 and Year 3 after the Battle of Yavin. Those uncontrollable undead troopers were referenced in the game Star Wars Commander. And so, yeah, turns out that it wasn't true that Death Troopers were reanimated necrotic tissue, but those undead troopers in that video game, which is still canon, it was a mobile game, weirdly, they were a real thing. And so that is definitely why I thought that was happening. But Palpatine, it's so great that I fell for Palpatine's otherworld propaganda here in the real world. So darn you,
He's
Palps.
that good
Yeah.
at
So
being
yeah,
evil.
he just capitalized on the whole panic rumor thing about the one
Well,
particular group of undead troopers.
well, the fact that, now Star Wars is technically multi-galaxies. Star Wars could exist in our current galaxy.
I
Hmm.
saw some crazy theories online that Balin Skull was from not the Star Wars galaxy, but from our galaxy, and had somehow ended up in Star Wars and became a Jedi.
Like Planet of the
And
Apes.
I'm, yeah, kind of like that. And I was like, huh, that'd be kind of cool. I mean, I guess that could still turn out to be true, but I doubt it, because I think that whole E.T., the extraterrestrial film, is about a Star
Yeah,
Wars alien
yeah,
coming to
that's
Earth. It's just kind of a nice, cute fan theory based on the Easter egg of him looking at Yoda. Then again, George Lucas echoed the Easter egg all those years later by having E.T.'s race be in the Imperial Senate, or the Republic Senate. So, anyway, Derek, what are your thoughts about Ahsoka Season 1 as a whole?
So Rebel season 5 was pretty good. I do overall thought it was a lot of fun. Um, Balin Skull, Ray Stevenson took the show for me from the dark side or the bad guys, if you want to say, right, or if you want to call them neutral, one or the other. Obviously, finally getting live action Thrawn was great. I thought, having the ability to have Lars continue to do that was phenomenal. And yeah, unfortunately, he was a little slightly pudgy, so apparently he was eating still well. He wasn't working out as much as he should have been. But maybe, but not to pick on poor Lars. I mean, granted. But that was probably the one thing that was a little off centering about the character. But other
Look,
than
man,
that,
I
it
was
was phenomenal.
happy to see it because it means that when I want to cosplay Thrawn, I can be screen accurate from season 1. That's all I gotta tell people. They're like, "Aren't you a little large for a Grand Admiral?" And I'll be like, "Listen, I'm screen accurate. That's what I was going for. Ignore the wig that I obviously would have to get and the blue body paint. But
Well, I
body
mean, to be
type,
fair, Lars is only about
got it.
halfway, Scott. So you don't have to get a full wig. You don't have to get like a half wig.
That's true.
So
Yeah, I could just
And
I could let these grow and then just do a little comb over.
go on.
my plan is to get that wax that you can put in your hair to turn it white and just go as Balin Skull.
There you go. So, but yeah, no, obviously, as little as she was on screen, I thought Mary Elizabeth Winstead did a phenomenal Hera. Really enjoyed that character. Really enjoyed. She definitely is, and it's just just her person as a personality. Her look, I should say. She was a little bit more softer than the Hera we're used to in the cartoon version. But other than that, she still felt like Hera. Had some really great stuff. Obviously, the cameo by Anthony Daniels was phenomenal.
Yeah.
As C-3PO in the Senate and all that stuff, and it was a great way for them to continue with Princess Leia, or General Organa. And obviously, without having Carrie Fisher or anybody recast her, to our comment earlier, right? I mean, obviously, they could have had anyone do, and they could have done, her daughter could have, easily stood in for her, or the character that I don't remember the young actress's name who did it in Rogue One at the end, and then just did a deep fake, right? If they really wanted to. Obviously, she would have been a little bit older, not quite old as prequels, but kind of that softer in between age. But then Hu Wang and David Tennant, phenomenal as always, and what he does in his works, and just there was a lot of great interactions with that, and I really enjoyed when he was on screen, because there was that comedy relief, as a lot of droids are, with Chopper too as well.
Yeah.
Which he always stole the scene. That was quite lovely. But just his conversations with Sabine is again what made me enjoy where I was hoping that character was going to go, from our conversation earlier. But overall, I enjoyed it. Right now it's hard to give it anything other than I enjoyed it, just because I don't know where the rest of the story is going.
Yeah.
Season 1 through season 4 of Rebels feels complete. Like it is. I mean, obviously we got the continuation with this on season 5, but that really is kind of that full arc completed. And I could watch that over again and have no problem with that.
Yeah.
This, like most of the newer Star Wars, I don't have the hugest thing to rewatch it. Andor I have, because it's a phenomenal piece of work. Mando season 1, and season 2 I can. Season 3, I haven't really had much of a desire to do anything with that. From a rewatch standpoint, Book of Boba Fett, obviously that I have not rewatched that yet either, though the parts with Mando season 2.5 with Mando and not Grogu, but with the Mando in the armor, I could watch that over and over. But Obi-Wan, not really, anything that I need to rewatch as well from that. So I would say right now it's middle of the pack for the live action Disney shows. I would say Book of Boba Fett probably the weakest at number 5. Then followed up with Obi-Wan at number 4. Then I would probably put Ahsoka at number 3. Mandalorian at number 2, just because of season 1 and season 2. If it was weighted by each season, season 3 would probably below this one. I would say this Ahsoka season 1 is better than Mando season 3. But season 1 and season 2, again, because it is a full story, does really a lot for Mando. And then obviously, season 1 of Andor is phenomenal. Hopefully, again, we'll get season 2 at some point once all this stuff is resolved and it continues to hold as well as season 1 did. But right now, like I said, I enjoyed it, but I would say there's, again, really what they did to Sabine kind of left a little bit of bad taste in my mouth, since it's probably the most recent thing I've watched from it. But overall, like I said, really I enjoyed the Clone Wars and what we got with young Ahsoka and Christian Haydenson. I mean, that was, if anything, I mean, give me that. That was something that I'd watch. Just because of Clone Wars, the cartoon we got a lot, but just that dynamic between the two characters, even though it wasn't a whole lot. I mean, it was really half an episode, but that was really good. Really enjoyed that. So, like I said, there's some key moments that are really great. It's kind of like the moment you get with Luke Skywalker and Mando at the end of season 2.
Mhm.
It's something you can really remember to it. But if the rest of season 2 wasn't as strong as it was, along with season 1, I don't think I'd really ever rewatch it, right? Other than just that clip it on YouTube when you can just, watch the last 10 minutes. I wouldn't need to watch the whole season. Same thing here. Like, there's some really good clip its. There's some really good action scenes, like I talked about. There's some really good, phenomenal lightsaber duels, especially in this last episode. So again, I enjoyed that. But like I said, it's an incomplete story, and it's not enough for me to rewatch it at this point, but I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same spot as Derek. It's an incomplete story, but I had a blast. I feel a little bit like I do about Star Trek: The Next Generation season 1. It's like, it's definitely not as good as what it eventually became, but you can see the sparkles of amazingness there. And I feel the same way about Ahsoka here and her as a character, and then pretty much the rest of the show too. I'm just a little bit worried that Ezra, Thrawn, Hera, and all that stuff being in the Prime Galaxy, whereas Ahsoka and Sabine and Shin and Balin are in the I don't have good terms yet, but
Galaxy 2.
Peridia,
The secondary
Galaxy 2.
galaxy.
Yeah, Beta Galaxy. That they're going to have the Ahsoka series season 2 is going to be limited to one of those galaxies, and I actually think it's going to be Beta Galaxy. And the story of Hera and Ezra and what all is happening with them is going to be a whole different series on Disney Plus from in the Star Wars universe. And it's going to be a modified rework of Rangers of the New Republic, which would be fairly easy to do because you have Carson Teva and those guys, and then that gives us the opportunity to have Ezra hook up with Zeb again, because we know he works occasionally with Carson. Which I'm okay with, but it kind of feels weird. I'm starting to get too much Marvel comics from them, where to keep up with the story, you've got to buy this issue of Fantastic Four, and this issue of Uncanny X-Men, and then this issue of Avengers, and so on and so forth. And obviously the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been doing that for more than a decade now, which I suppose it was almost inevitable that Star Wars would move in the same direction, but it is a little bit annoying to my grumpy old man, just give me a Star Wars movie, kind of viewpoint. But as far as this series goes, in this season of Ahsoka, I had a great time. I loved it. I really enjoyed even the episodes that some other fans have been referring to as filler. I'm like, you guys, you've watched enough Dave Filoni projects to know that in the end there is no filler episode. So hopefully that all comes to fruition in season 2, and I think we're gonna get a third season. I think we'll get 3 seasons of Ahsoka before the movie. And I think the second season is dealing with all the Force stuff in Beta Galaxy, and season 3 is how do Ahsoka and Sabine get back to the Galaxy Prime so that they can join the rest of our heroes in Star Wars The Avengers. I mean, Star Wars Dave Filoni's movie, whatever we're going to call it. Still think it might be the Night of Tears on Mandalore. That'll be the whole plot of the film. But that doesn't make sense now that I think about having to get Ahsoka and them back. So who knows? What do you think, Nathan?
Well, I agree with Derek that Rebels Season 5 was pretty good. It definitely felt like Rebels Season 5. There were entire episodes where Ahsoka barely showed up, despite her name being on the title of the show. So I did feel like it was a bit misnamed because of that. Now, that doesn't make the episode bad just because Ahsoka's not in it or barely in it. But it does make it a bit mislabeled. And that's not a great thing to mislabel a product, unless you're a Ferengi, but that's a whole different universe.
But they could be connected now.
They could be connected.
If Disney buys Paramount, that'll be much more likely, but I don't actually think they're going to do that.
I do think that it took a little too long to get our heroes together. I liked the episode where Ezra and Sabine and Ahsoka got together. That was my favorite episode, and I wish we had had more time with them together. The very next episode was the finale, and they fought together, but they didn't really talk and interact. We didn't get character story out of them between them meeting back up and us having to finish the season. So either a couple more episodes to kind of expand upon that part of the story, or have them get to Peridia a little bit quicker, I think would have been a little bit better. That said, I did have fun watching this season. When my complaint involves, I would like to have seen a couple more episodes, that's not the worst complaint in the world.
Yeah, totally. And I agree with you there. I would have liked to have seen a couple more episodes because, again, I want to know what Thrawn's plan is, what's in the box. Anyway, but I'll be patient and...
Well, the stinger is I was hoping that they were going to do it, but they were going to show kind of like the Indiana Jones at the end where they got like stacks of them, and there's one of them where you actually get to see the close up, and it's Ezra.
Yeah. Oh, and so that the Ezra that was been bopping around is not the real Ezra or a clone of Ezra or whatever. Oh, that would have been awesome because it almost was right there, Derek. Like you said, there's stacks on stacks and stacks of boxes, and it's being looked at by top Night Sisters, and then nothing. We just had Thrawn standing there being all, look at my cool collection of boxes, all new in box, baby, all new in box.
What's in the boxes? No, you misunderstand. They are just boxes.
That's right. The boxes are empty. I just want to be able to say that I have all these mint in box boxes.
Hey, for all you know, they could be like new refrigerators, or they could be bathtubs or something. Like, for all you know, maybe Thrawn is just trying to bring peace and order back to the galaxy.
Yeah.
But those darn rebels keep getting in the way.
Yeah. That's
I know
totally
what's in the boxes. I know what's in the boxes. It's those particular type of Imperial ration crackers that Dude Man really loved in Mando season 3. And so Thrawn's hoarding them all to use as a way to entice people to betray the New Republic.
That's going to be the
red
currency
ones, the
when it
yellow
takes
ones,
over.
the blue ones.
Yes. It's Soylent Green. All right, anyway. It's yellow. It's Soylent
When everything's
yellow.
destroyed, what's the most valuable resource? Water and food.
Yeah, totally. He's going to be all like, now that I have destroyed your planet by analyzing your art of cuisine, I know that you will find these particular ration chips irresistible.
Oh, hopefully they get a cameo from Gordon Ramsay then next year, right? So.
Jedi Ramsay.
This Soylent is disgusting. Now, put this on either side of your face. I am an idiot Soylent sandwich. Okay. All right.
All right,
Well,
I think we've gone way off the rails.
We have gone way off the rails, but sadly, we must take a... Yes?
Well, I was just going to say, but what is one thing you guys hope for season 2? One thing.
Oh, well, obviously for me, I want to know what the devil is in those boxes. So if my theory about season 2 won't involve the Prime Galaxy at all is true, I'll be very upset because it means
you won't know still.
Whatever comes out with Thrawn in the next story. But yeah, I want to know what's in the boxes for season 2. I hope that we will find that out, and I hope that I am wrong about there being a limit to which galaxy they do stories in.
Okay.
I hope that Scott's disappointed because I really want to see a whole lot about the Beta Galaxy and the world between worlds and Mortis and what's the father and the son statues doing out there? Why is the daughter statue destroyed? Is Sabine the new? Not Sabine. Is Ahsoka the new daughter? Is she going to take the place? Is Baylan Skoll going to be the new father or perhaps the new son? Perhaps Anakin's the father. Regardless, I want to see all of that stuff. And I do want to see the stuff in the Prime Galaxy as well, but I'd be fine with that being a different show. No, yeah. I think Scott's right that we are getting a little too much. We have so many shows, you have to watch them all. But, I mean, it feels like we've got two different directions. And I'm not sure how long one show can hold those two directions.
Yeah. Derek, what do you hope to see in season 2 of Ahsoka?
So with Ahsoka out of the picture now, at least for an undetermined amount of time, I hope we get a left-wing Rebels cameo from the great Sarah Michelle Gellar as the Seventh Sister.
Ooh, that'd be cool. That would be super great.
Ezra struggled with that, so it would be someone that would be on par. So I'd like to see an Inquisitor come back. That I thought was a really good character.
Yeah. Buffy the Jedi Slayer. Okay. Anyway, all right. Well, unfortunately, we have to take a slight detour to a much more sad topic in this part of the podcast, in that we have lost another member of the Star Wars family. Not an actor this time, but costume designer Shauna Tripsick has passed away at age 56. Way too young, guys. Of course, Shauna was well known for her work on The Mandalorian in Star Wars costume design. But she did a lot more Hollywood projects. Nathan, I think you had a list somewhere about all of the different things that she had done as a costume designer. Many genre and fandom related shows that a lot of our listeners have seen and probably are big fans of.
Yeah, I was just looking on IMDb, and in addition to The Mandalorian and Ahsoka, she also worked on Firefly and on Torchwood, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So quite an array of things that we all love and enjoy. I didn't know this name until I heard this article, and that's kind of a shame. The actors get a lot of focus and a lot of attention, but there's a whole lot of people who work very hard to bring us these shows that don't get as much credit as they really deserve. And in costume design, that's a particular place where we love these costumes. Those really bring these shows to life. That's the difference between a visual medium and we could just be reading this in a book. And we love going to conventions, and we love seeing people in cosplay, and sometimes even cosplaying ourselves. Scott, you talked about possibly doing Thrawn. I would love to do Baylan Skoll. I'm not sure exactly which one she worked on, but that means that she's had a hand in something that we would love to represent in real life. So it's a shame to see something like this happen. We don't know all the details, but we really ought to remember to pay more attention to the people in the credits, not just the actors.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, there's an article on Deadline.com talking about her work and how much she had been awarded for it and how integral she was to the Star Wars streaming series. And Dave Filoni himself had this to say on her passing. Shauna had a deep love and appreciation for Star Wars. You can see that in every piece of work she did with us. She loved everything about being a part of these stories, including connecting with fans and being a part of that community. I feel like she has always been a part of Star Wars. Her costumes tell a story, providing the suggestion of a life experience that happened before the cameras rolled. I loved collaborating with Shauna, and I will miss her presence. And Jon Favreau said, her creativity brought this world to life. She will be deeply missed both as a friend and as a colleague. So, rest in peace to Shauna Tripsick. If anyone out there wants to donate in her name, a fund has been created on behalf of her children, Joseph and Sarah Tripsick. And you can, of course, go online and search for that. There's a GoFundMe.com page for her memorial and a fund to help out her kids. All right, well, one more piece of Star Wars news before we wrap up this episode of the podcast, and that is that, it's time to move on from Ahsoka. And so we have had a leak online of a synopsis for the upcoming Star Wars Skeleton Crew series. The updated synopsis for this series that stars Jude Law reads as such. Let me see if I can find the image real quick. Somebody who checks on this stuff for a whatever the heck we're calling that now, handle of Mando 3 updates, Mandoverse updates, checked out the copyright filings for the Walt Disney Company, and specifically Lucasfilm Limited, for Skeleton Crew Episode 101, which of course is how Hollywood scriptwriters refer to the first episode of Season 1 of a new series. And here is the part from the copyright form that reads, Description of the work. In the first episode of The Skeleton Crew, we are introduced to 4 kids who make a mysterious discovery on their seemingly safe home planet and get lost in a strange and dangerous galaxy. Finding their way home, meeting unlikely allies and enemies, will be a greater adventure than they ever imagined. And then it lists the main cast, including Jude Law, Ryan Armstrong, Robert Smith, Revi Kobot-Conyers, Kiriana Crater, and director John Watts, with shooting locations being listed as Manhattan Beach Studios, Los Angeles, California. Guys, is it just me, or does this feel like a Star Wars version of Star Trek Prodigy?
Yeah.
I didn't watch Prodigy, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Well, I see where you're going with this, because in Prodigy, we have Catherine Janeway, or the hologram thereof, who is kind of shepherding some young recruits. They're not exactly recruits, young people who would like to join the Federation as they make their way through the galaxy. And they don't really know what they're doing, but they found themselves on a Starfleet vessel, a training vessel, which is why they've got the Catherine Janeway hologram, because she's supposed to be helping to train people. And she said, well, I'm here to train people and you're here, so I guess I'll train you. And so I can see the similarities. Jude Law's character taking the role that Catherine Janeway's hologram takes.
So, Derek, since you didn't watch Prodigy, obviously that didn't remind you of it. What are your thoughts about this synopsis?
Well, here we go again. Apparently, Jude Law's character is a Force user. And this again annoys me because, again, that's what we were talking about joking earlier. It's everybody, again, some of the best Star Wars is without Force users. Just give me a good story. Now, again, I'm not saying I'm going to hold judgment on it, though I am getting worried about it because of all the behind the scenes things that we've been hearing, right, from rumors and all that it was real tough and grind. There were reshoots and everything else, and there was some issues with it. So I'm not expecting a whole lot. To to me, Prodigy was aimed towards a kids show, more or less. I mean, that's why I didn't
Very
watch
much,
it.
very
Definitely.
much so. Yeah, yeah.
So, and that was the same kind of reason, even though we all tried to get it, and Scott was the one that stuck through it the most, right, with Star Wars Resistance. But this one is obviously going to be on its own, it says, but at the same time, try to tie into the overall, Star Wars universe that they currently have. It is going to be somewhat tied to the connecting movie by Dave Filoni at some point. So yeah, I mean, again, the cast seems great. I mean, there's a really strong cast, and if they've got a good story, put it in the Star Wars, and I'm all for it. So, but I'm honestly anticipating that this is going to do worse, and I'm going to put this below Book of Boba Fett. Is where I'm heading with this one, but we'll see. So, but really, honestly, who knows?
Yeah, it absolutely feels like this is going to be like middle grade kind of show, or if, as Nathan was talking earlier about books, if we were going to talk about this as a book series in Star Wars, this will be like the young adult series of novels, if you will, which is fine because I want more kids to watch Star Wars and grow up with Star Wars. And believe it or not, we've reached the point where the Grogu kids are all kind of aging out of that demo. And so you need another
starting
hook.
to.
Starting to, yeah. So you need another hook for kids to be interested in Star Wars, to keep Lucasfilm doing it and Disney wanting them to keep doing it. But yeah, I think if we're thinking about comparing this to something like Ahsoka, or to say nothing of Andor, it's just not going to be in the same galaxy as those series. And this idea that they would be finding their way home in a strange and terrifying galaxy, or however it was phrased, almost leads you to think that they might end up in a non-prime galaxy too. And kind
or
of
vice
like
versa. They come from a different. Maybe
that's true too. Yeah,
maybe they got tied in. We don't see it.
Yeah,
But maybe they got sucked in when the left here at the end of season 8. When they go back.
maybe so.
I'll be honest. I hope that we are all wrong about the timing of this show in terms of when it is set. I hope that it's not tied in with the rest of the Mandalorian and Ahsoka and Thrawn and all of that. This story sounds like it would be way better as early days of the Empire.
Or
I
even
have bad-
in the Republic.
Oh, yeah. No, I know that this is not what's happening.
I have bad news for you. That's not what's happening.
yeah, it's not news. I know it's not what's happening, but this is what I would prefer if these were younglings who weren't at the temple, and now all of a sudden, maybe they were on Ilium getting lightsaber crystals, and Jude Law was the Jedi who was with them, and oh gosh, Order 66 has happened. We happen to not have any clones with us, so we survived, but we have to make our way through this dangerous galaxy. That would make a whole lot more sense than the Empire is gone and dead, and we're not really being hunted. So why is the galaxy dangerous for us? I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be any more dangerous for them than anybody else.
And you know what? If they would have done it that way, we could have got an Ahmed Best cameo as Kelleran with Grogu.
And if we did the whole Ilum thing, we could find out how Hu Yang survived.
Mm-hmm.
And we could have a David Tennant type.
Unfortunately, depending on your perspective, maybe fortunate.
Yeah, it's not happening that way.
In 2022,
but maybe the reshoots.
They confirmed the setting, at least, was during the Mandoverse time in 2022 at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim. So
yeah, and that gives me pause.
Then again, it's not like Lucasfilm has ever announced something at a convention and then later that something doesn't actually go that way. So,
or happen at all.
Or happen at all, right?
Maybe the first few episodes are when Jude Law is involved and there's kids, and then the last couple episodes are when they're all adults, and now they're, kind of like, the whole It Chapter 1, Chapter 2, right? So
that's an interesting idea.
Like Thrawn is at the beginning when they're kids, and now Thrawn's back when they're adults. Just like It.
That seems unlikely, but
I'm just saying, I'm writing this stuff for Lucasfilm and Filoni. Come on.
Yeah, I'm putting it out in the universe. I'm putting it out in the universe. You guys just need to pick up what I'm putting down. Anywho, well, you can bet your sweet Bippy that whatever happens on Skeleton Crew, we will dissect it ad nauseum, unless it gets into Star Wars Resistance territory, in which case we'll stop watching it.
Oh no,
but
I'll still dissect it.
I'll put it
It'll
through.
just be
I'll put it
post mortem.
I may just complain a lot.
At least it's live action, not yet another cartoon, right? All right. Well, anyway, but something that we will discuss ad nauseum is what Star Wars T-shirts are we wearing this week? So, Derek, what have you got?
Well, I had my Sabine hoodie on, but it was actually getting a little warm in here since we've been recording now for an hour and 40 minutes.
Yes.
And I actually had to turn my heat on just because at night it's been getting super cold, even here in Lexington. So I'm down in the basement, which usually, heat rises and, the cool is a little bit cooler, but it's a little warm with the hoodie on. So, but I had to unfortunately miss, the past couple episodes. So I still have cards to show. So I thought these next three would have been good. And I thought it was very well, at least I was trying to make it somewhat thematic. It didn't quite go that way. Or maybe actually switch that around. Hold on. Give me 1 second while I'm doing that. So this is in honor of Nathan's favorite book series that he talked about earlier. Okay. And hopefully this will make more sense. So we have, well, it's going to be kind of out of order a little bit just because of the way it works. But this one, let's see if I can do it. Okay, we'll try it this way. We'll see. You guys can give me your thoughts. So, well, the first one we had, it's kind of a mixture between the two. So it would have been the Jedi, right?
The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord.
The Witch and the Warlord. Yeah.
So we'll do it this way. So the Jedi.
All right. Yes.
Luke Skywalker, Rebel Scout.
Scout.
Yeah,
yes.
It's
good
the
times,
foil
good
version
times.
from. That was the premium that they put in Reflections 2, which was the premium, and this is Reflections 3 because it's the foil of the premium.
This is the card they made essentially because the ultra rare from Death Star 2 set was too hard to get, and you needed a Luke that had the Death Star 2 symbol on it. So they actually put a different set symbol on the card.
Yeah, they put them as like what Star Trek did a lot later on with some of the icons. So this was kind of like the TS era, right? So for that one, and then we had the Witch, which would have been this one.
Oh, hey, Mara Jade, good times.
And this
Speaking
is the
of
Reflections 2
changes to Heir to the Empire.
Yeah,
this is the. It's hard to see with the glare. Let me see if I take this off. It's a little bit better. Sorry. This is, or maybe it's coming from the other one. This is the ultra rare foil from Reflections 2. So,
Very cool.
Yes, I love the fact that she was alien and also Imperial.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and then the Warlord
that was
is
the background. And then the Warlord, it's not really Warlord, but we'll go with it anyways, just because it was thematic, was daughter of Skywalker. So she's, a general or war lord.
Yeah, we talked about having ability 5.
Yes.
Daughter of Skywalker does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So, and the way this goes too is both of these are connected with the back borders. Like I said, with the custom slabs, I don't know if you could see them. They kind of match with the.
Oh yeah, I see.
Sorry,
Yeah.
there. Maybe
that is pretty
close.
cool.
So,
Very
nice.
nice.
I like the pairings of stuff like that. So, but I'll go through the other one, another set real quick, and then I'll save one more. The other one I was going to do was going to be based off the original. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. But this one, I figured this is going to be the Lion, and this will be the one that Nathan's going to want. So
is it Qui-Gon Jinn? Oh no,
it's Mournful Howl.
It's Mournful Roar.
Mournful Roar, the 7 Destiny card that you
Yes.
put in because it's Destiny 7.
Yes, and
Derek,
it's
I
the
gave you
Japanese.
They gave you a 6.5 though. Huh?
Yeah, unfortunately, most of these Japanese cards were from that one I got. They are a bit rough on the surface, more than I thought that they were. Because like a lot of them have like 7.5 to like 10 on everything else, but the surface is like anywhere from a 5 to a 6.5. So it just brings everything else down because it's the lowest grade. So that's the rough part. And then the Witch was going to be Admiral Ozzel
Admiral Ozzel.
because he's a whiny little.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
He's a
rhymes
witch.
With which, yeah.
This leads to one of the greatest jokes in the entire game. He's immune to thermal detonators,
Yes.
or was it some other explosive? There's a weird interaction with I think it was thermal detonators.
No, it's where he's with Vader. He's like immune, and then if he loses a battle and Vader's on the table or something like that, or
No. There's a weapon that when you use it, you draw destiny, and everybody who has the same destiny number as what you drew
oh,
is killed. But if you drew a 0, only the guy who has the thermal detonator blows up. But that means that Admiral Ozzel can't die to it because if you draw 0, only the guy who has it dies.
gotcha. And then this was the wardrobe, which is Rogue One.
Rogue One.
Cool.
This is Luke Skywalker's.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Very nice.
that's the little mountain
T-47.
backgrounds. Yeah. So, anyways, I'll save the last one for the next show when we have that here in a couple of weeks, probably. So, anyways, I got one more set. So there you go. I was trying to be a little thematic with the Chronicles of Narnia for you.
Awesome. All right, Nathan, what shirt do you have on this week? Or merchandise do you have to hawk?
Well, you're right about me loving the mournful roar because that has Chewbacca on it, and you must beware of Wookiee.
Good times.
Yes, Wookiees can show up at any time in any place. There were several Wookiees in this episode. There weren't not.
No.
But I'm pretending there were tons of them because I love Wookiees.
Good times. Well, I have an original Star Wars shirt this week, one I haven't worn on the show yet because I found it on sale at GameStop for like $5 the other day, and it is a nice rainbowy yet pre-distressed version of Grogu. He's got the Star Wars logo there in the blue and white, and he's got his pink ears and his green skin and his little coat. And he's just looking perfectly 1980s. And the pre-distressed thing in the heather color of the fabric makes me feel like I've had this shirt since the 1980s, which obviously is impossible, but is still a cool thought that in some alternate universe, Grogu was a character in the original trilogy because Star Wars was told broad across all of the 80s decade, not just the first 3 years.
Well,
Well,
and hopefully
anyway,
I'll
if-
get to meet Grogu here in a couple weeks when we go to Disney World. And the fact that
Yes.
Mando and Grogu are now at Disney World,
Yeah.
that's cool. So hopefully that Thursday we go, hopefully knock on wood, we'll get the chance
Yep.
to see Mando, Din Djarin himself, along with the baby Yoda Grogu himself as well.
Outstanding. Well, if you guys out there listening want to get your own cool What a Piece of Junk t-shirt, or coffee mug, or iPad case, or mousepad, or so on and so forth, or any of the other awesome Fandom Podcast Network shows that have their own merchandise, just like Derek is showing off here, excellent, please head over to teepublic.com and search up Fandom Podcast Network in the user bar, and you can look at all the awesome merch that we have for sale and support the show. And another way you can support the show is to talk about us online to your friends and family and share the show. Nathan, why don't you let people know where they can find us on the internet?
You can find us in many different places on the internet. Anywhere that you get podcasts, you can find us. That includes Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and of course, YouTube. You can find us on Facebook, What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast, or you can email us, whatapieceofjunkpod@gmail.com. On Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days, we're at What Wars. And on Instagram, you can view the entire Fandom Podcast Network at Fandom Podcast Network. No, we don't get points for creativity, but we're easy to find. And if you do listen to us on Apple Podcasts or any other platform that allows you to give us a rating, we would love for you to give us a review. Let us know what we're doing well, what we could be doing better. And Derek, why do we want the 5-star reviews?
Well, we want this 5-star reviews because we are right now trying to get Ahsoka and Sabine back. And we need that by raising funds. And we do that through 5 stars. And when you do that, it helps us get to not only the top of the charts when people Google search us on Star Wars podcasts or whatever platform they're downloading it, right? And obviously they'll see What a Piece of Junk, because all the great stuff that we talk about, whether you agree with us or not, is great. It's great content, right? We're hoping that we'll continue to keep doing this for your listening pleasure. And when we do that, like I said, those reviews are going to help. So by leaving us those reviews, we'll be able to do that. We'll get that coaxium, and then we can figure out, again, I don't know how we're going to make the leap. I guess we'll probably have to go in some type of Purgil mouth. So Nathan, you're going to have to start, maybe learning how to speak not only Wookiee, but Purgil next. So that way we can get into the whale's mouth and shoot off and go hopefully rescue Ahsoka and Sabine and get them back here. Because I don't know, guys, if we're going to be able to do the things that we're doing now that Thrawn's back. I heard that Thrawn's, loves culture, but he's not too much into podcasting reviews. So I'm not sure how much longer we'll be able to do this if we don't get them back.
Clearly, the artistic interpretation and value of these ridiculous audio files is nil. We must end all podcasts. That's his real secret weapon. He destroys all Star Wars podcasts and wrecks fandom. And without that to back them up, the New Republic just crumbles like a house of cards.
Maybe that's what's in the box, a bunch of bodies of podcasters, former podcasters.
Oh no.
Yikes. Well, but then the Night Sisters bring us all back to do Disney Shill podcast where we just talk about it. Everything's great.
Oh, that's even worse.
I can't wait for the new episode of Insert Star Wars series.
Skeleton Crew.
Yes.
We need more Star Wars resistance.
Look, when we said skeleton crew, we didn't mean actual skeletons, guys.
No, that's the whole point. Get it? Skeleton Crew. Har, har, har.
Somebody's got jokes.
Yep. But not brains. Well, anyway, guys, we thank you so much for listening this week, and we hope that we will be back soon to talk about whatever the next Star Wars project is. As is often the case when a Star Wars streaming series comes to an end and we don't have weekly episodes to dissect, we might take a little bit of a break here as we get ready for the holiday season in the United States, because all three of us are family guys, and we're going to be quite busy, I am sure. But we will be back sooner rather than later to talk more Star Wars. So please, always remember to respect each other and always respect each other's fandom. All right, Nathan, punch it.